what's up? Today I want to go ahead and talk to you about what it's like being a 10-year teacher in the state of California and just give you all of the tea about where I graduated from, why I decided to become a teacher, what it's like being a teacher, how much I get paid, how to survive in this world of teaching. So if you're interested in hearing all about my teaching experience, then go ahead and just keep watching. Alright you guys, so I thought I would go ahead and film this video for all of the people that are interested in the teaching profession. Maybe I can give you a little bit of insight into California education and what it takes to be a teacher in California. I also have experience teaching in Utah. That's where I did most of my teaching. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that in this video, and then hopefully just answer some questions about what it's like now versus what it was like when I first started teaching. I don't know, we'll just see where this video goes, and if you have any other questions, please go ahead and put them in the comment section and I will go ahead and do a part 2 of this video for any questions that I did not answer right now. So, okay, first and foremost, let me go ahead and give you guys a little bit of background information about where I went to school and things like that. So in high school, I had some really great English teachers. And then in college, when I was just getting my general education here at a community college in the desert, I had a really great English professor. And he was one of the best English professors I think I've ever had in my life. And so he really solidified the fact that I wanted to be an educator and an English teacher specifically. When I started at the community college, I was pregnant with my daughter. If you guys haven't seen my Teen Mom story, I will go ahead and link that in the description bar down below. But I had my daughter when I was 19, turning 20. So I was already in community college with one kid and working on my general education. I ended up getting an associate's in, what did I get an associate's in? Early childhood education, I think. Either early childhood education or education in general. I can't quite remember. But I ended at a community college after about 3.5 years. Normally it should only take you about 2, but I took 3.5 years because I was pregnant with my daughter, and so I kind of went and stopped and went and stopped. And then after that, I transferred to a two-year university. I guess it could be a 4-year, but 2-year university for me. I went to California State University, San Bernardino here in the desert, where I got a bachelor's degree in secondary education. And then at that point I had my son, so I had 2 kids in college, young mom. I was like 23 when I got pregnant with my son and 24 when I had my son. And I had already been married for about 5 years. I married my husband when I was 19. So I had finished my education at CSUSB and I got a degree in secondary education. However, in the state of California, they do not attach the teaching credential to most 2-year universities, especially at Cal State. So at that point, I knew that if I wanted to be a teacher, I needed to get into a credential program. And it was either I got into a credential program and got a master's, or I just did a credential program. So basically it was a no-brainer. I decided to go ahead and enroll in the master's program at Cal State. And at that point, my husband had been offered a job in Utah. So I had never been to Utah, never been out of California, but my husband had lived there in the past, in the 90s, and he really loved it. His oldest brother lived there at the time. So I thought, you know what, why not? Life is an adventure. Let's pick up our kids and move to Utah. So in Utah, I ended up applying to University of Phoenix. That's where I went for about 2.5 years. I got my master's degree and a credential in secondary education with an emphasis in English, journalism, and writing. And I graduated there in 2008, I believe. Yes, and no, because my son was little. So I graduated there in 2008, and I ended up getting a job. I graduated in December, and I ended up getting a job at a school in January, about an hour away from where we were living at the time. So I started my teaching career in 2009 at a school. It was a charter school, and I was at 2 charter schools back to back before I finally got a job in public education in Utah. The grass is not always greener, you guys. I thought I would love being at a public school, but it was way different than being at a charter. Being at a charter, the classes are smaller and you just have more say in what you're teaching and how you're teaching it. Whereas at a public school, you have the school board, you have the administration kind of always buckling down on you to make sure that you're meeting standards. Not to say that in smaller schools that doesn't happen as well, but you just have more pressure, I think, at a public school. So I taught at both charter schools for 2 years, and then my 5th year is when I got the job at the public school, and I was there for 3 years. And at that point, my illness had started getting really, really bad. So I have polycystic kidney disease, and I was very, very sick the end of my 3rd year at the public school. And I ended up having to resign from my position going into my 4th year because my kidneys were just on fire, you guys. It was really, really bad. So I actually took a 2-year sabbatical, and that was going into my 2, 4, 5, 6, 7. That was going into my 8th year. So technically I'm a 10-year teacher, but I've only been teaching 8 years because I took a 2-year sabbatical. So the 2nd year of my sabbatical, we decided to move back to California just because of a lot of things. My husband's mom was getting older and my kids were getting older, and they needed their family more. My grandmother was getting older. She was in her late 80s. So we just kind of decided for a lot of reasons to move back to California. I did not think I was going to go back. I was only out of work for 1 year when we were in Utah, and my 2nd year out of work was last year when we moved here. So I decided to go ahead and try to reapply for positions here in California, but there are a lot of different standards that you have to meet working in California than you do in Utah. So remember, I have a Utah teacher credential. Therefore, when I got the job at my new charter school, because I just found out that I love charter schools way more than public schools. That's a whole nother video though, you guys. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video on, like, you know, charter schools versus public schools, the pros and cons, and I will be glad to do that for you, but that's going to take a really long time. So I would rather just have that as a separate video. Anyway, I got a job at my current school, which I absolutely love. And I had to do a lot of paperwork in order to get this job. I had to go through the process of the California credentialing program. I am actually still in that process. And I sent in all my paperwork, my licenses, my test scores, my transcripts, all of that. And I have yet to hear back if California is going to require me to retake a test, because the Utah test may not be equivalent, the teaching test, it may not be equivalent to the California teaching test. If I have to do that, you guys, I am so scared, because I had to take the Utah teaching test, which is called the Praxis. I had to take that test 6 times. Now, I'm a level 2 license in Utah, which means I had to take the Praxis 1 and the Praxis 2. I passed the Praxis 2 with flying colors, you guys, because it's all essay and I'm an English teacher. The Praxis 1 is math, science, and English, and I had to take that test, I think, 7 times before I passed it with a passing score. So if the California Credentialing Commission comes back and tells me that I have to take the CBEST or the CSET, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have to hire a tutor, yada, 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 because it's gonna get ugly. I transferred it as soon as I got the job at my new job, because I knew that I was gonna need it at my current school. But it takes a long time for California to get back to you guys. It takes months and months and months. If you transfer your license from another state into California, it takes a long time, and there's a lot of hoops you have to jump through. So just keep that in mind if you're thinking about moving to California, you're thinking about becoming a teacher in California. Sometimes it is a process when you have to go from state to state, because California has so many different requirements. So I hope that I met all those requirements, but I just don't know. I will keep you guys updated though. Okay, so ended up applying at public schools, charter schools, all of that, because I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to go. I had a lot of interviews and I had a couple of job offers, but I did decide to go with the current school I'm at now, just because I love their environment. I love who they are, I love what they're about, and since August it has been a wonderful, wonderful experience, a wonderful journey. So what it's like teaching high school as a 30-something-year-old, it's difficult. So I teach high school English, and English as a second language, or ELD here in California, as well as critical reading. So I do have an ELD endorsement. That's something I didn't tell you. In Utah, I went to another university called Southern Utah University, or SUU, where I did receive an endorsement. It's like an attachment to your license. It's an extra thing that you can teach if you have a certain document or certain paper, certain endorsement that says you can. So I have an ELD endorsement. Best thing I ever did, you guys. It made me more marketable. It made me just appreciate education more, and it made me feel like I could be kind of a jack of all trades in this profession. I didn't have to just teach English or journalism or writing or reading. I could do ELD, which I love. I love teaching ELD, and that's another story as well. But currently I teach 9th grade regular English and 9th grade honors. I was supposed to teach 10th grade, but one of our teachers at my school became the vice principal, so things kind of had to be shifted around. But I teach 9th grade English, and I absolutely love it. My kids are phenomenal. So let me talk a little bit about what it's like being a teacher in this economy and being 30-something. Especially in California, where the economy is incredibly difficult. It's hard. I know that you guys all hear, you know, all of the things about teachers don't get paid enough and educators need to be, you know, seen in a different light, and that's 100% true. So those of you that are thinking about going into the profession, that's one thing I really recommend you think about is, are you ready to, number one, not make enough money, and number two, not be seen for what you're worth, both in the classroom and out of the classroom. Because a lot of the time there are people who think that we are glorified babysitters. There's a lot of the time we get the whole, you get summers off, you get vacations, you get this and this and that. And yes, that is 100% true, but my job is probably one of the hardest jobs that anyone could have. Not only do I have to take care of X amount of kids every day on a daily basis, make sure they're safe, make sure they're learning, make sure that I'm not making mistakes in my classroom, but I also have to make sure that I'm mentoring the young minds that are going to go out there and become future doctors, become future educators, become future policemen, become future Taco Bell workers or dump truck drivers, whatever it is that they want to do with their lives. So not only do I have to grade, and do I have to, you know my stuff, my content, my knowledge, everything. I always have to be learning. You know, I always have to know all of the new content, all of the new standards, especially for California, who put so much pressure on their teachers. But I also have to remember that I am molding the future, and I am constantly looking over my shoulder to see if one of my students is around in a situation that could make either of us uncomfortable. And that's another thing. I don't believe that there are any other jobs out there where you are not judged, but you are looked at both in your classroom and out of your classroom as a mentor, as a person who is trusted, and a person who is just on a different level than some other maybe careers are. But I'm always constantly, like at restaurants, for example, if I want to order a drink, I have to be careful that my students aren't around. If I am at a liquor store, I have to be careful my students aren't with their parents. If I'm walking down the street and I'm not dressed appropriately and a student sees me, I'm always worried about that kind of stuff. So even in the non-classroom setting, I'm always concerned with my, I don't know how to say it. I'm always concerned with what I look like and what I'm wearing and my attitude, and just a lot of different things that I don't think a lot of professionals have to think about, and that's a lot of pressure. And being someone who does already have a chronic illness, and I always have to worry about stress and how that affects my chronic illness, I'm, you know, in that kind of environment, it does put way more pressure than usual. So that's one of the things that I always tell people who ask me, like, what is it like teaching? There are so many amazing things that come along with teaching, like knowing that you do make a difference in the lives of kids. You do make a difference in the lives of, you know, their parents sometimes, and just in education in general. You know, I do feel like I have a stronger voice being at a charter school than I did when I was at a public school. But with all of the pros, you know, like having vacation, having summers off, that is amazing. There is so much else that goes into being a teacher that I don't think people really talk about. And that's why I wanted to do this video. Now, something that's super taboo is money and income and what we make as teachers. I don't know why people are so afraid to talk about it. I don't know why it's become this topic that nobody wants to talk about. It's a well-known fact that teachers are not paid enough for, number one, the education that they have, number two, the time that goes into their job, and number three, just the dedication that a lot of us have. Now, there are teachers out there who do give us a bad name, and that sucks, but that should not allow this economy to not provide for us educators. I'm not going to tell you exactly what I make, but I'll tell you a ballpark of what I make. And mind you, I've never made this much money before. In Utah, I made between $35,000 and $45,000 a year, and I was a 7-year teacher, and that's nothing, you guys. That's nothing. If you equate that to monthly expenses, I was basically working to figure out how to not pay myself to work. Does that make sense? Like, I was working to pay all of my bills and go through the process, but I wasn't making enough of what I needed in order to truly survive. So moving to California, it changed a little bit, but you have to take into consideration that California is a way different economy than Utah is. So when California teachers say that they make $100,000 a year, that's because in the California economy, everything is so much more expensive. So now being in California, I make somewhere between, I'm gonna just tell you, between $70,000 and $85,000 a year. And that's because the California economy is so different. So yes, that's a $35,000 to $45,000 difference, but if you take into consideration the rent I have to pay, if you take into consideration the utility bills, if you can take into consideration the insurance and the car payments and everything else that comes along with living in California, that is almost nothing. It equates to what I was being paid in Utah technically, because the economy in Utah is a little bit better and things are priced a little bit more decent. They don't pay you as much, but here in California, it's the same thing. Things are higher and you get paid more, but you have to pay the same kind of cost. So even though I got a $45,000 raise a year, I didn't technically get that raise because the economy in California is so unheard of. Being paid what I am paid is just not enough. Now, all of the teachers that I have spoken to, and I mean all of them, have told me that they're in the same position. You know, yes, it is an amazing job. It's so fulfilling, and on a daily basis, I am happy to go to work. I'm never, ever upset or sad or frustrated. You know, yeah, there's some times where I want to pull my hair out because my students just are not being as well behaved as they could. For the most part, being an educator is one of the most fulfilling, one of the most amazing jobs that anyone could ever put themselves in. So I don't want this video to come off as me teacher bashing, because it's not what I'm doing. And I don't want this video to come off as me telling you guys to not become an educator, because it is, I've never regretted it, if that helps. I've never said to myself or looked at myself in the mirror and said, I don't want to be a teacher anymore, you know, for any other reason other than I needed a break because my kidneys or because I just needed to change for a minute. I've never looked at myself and said, what are you doing with your life? This is not for you. You need to do something different. When I was off those 2 years, you guys, I felt like something was missing every single day of my life. I felt like I had a void in my heart. I felt like there was just something that was happening in my soul that I didn't know how to explain. And when I finally got back into the classroom this school year, it was like I was complete again. It was like I was whole. It was like I knew that was the thing that was missing, but I didn't want to conscientiously fix it. You know, does that make sense? So do not take this video as you shouldn't become a teacher because this, and this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm going into this 100% candid. I'm going into this being honest and upfront with you guys. So if you are interested in going into the profession, you know that there are some things that you have to consider. I don't know about any other districts or any other states. I've never lived in New York. I've never lived in, you know, back east. I've never lived in the South. I don't know what it's like being an educator there. I do follow a lot of forums that talk about it. I do, you know, talk to a lot of different teachers from different states via Facebook and, you know, just some friends who have moved there, but I don't have that experience, so I can only speak for Utah and California. And again, there are pros and cons to teaching in both states. Utah has more leniency, but California just takes care of their teachers better. There are more unions in California who are more willing to fight for their teachers than there are in Utah. And that's something that's really important to me. You know, I want to make sure that I'm protected. Now, being at a charter school, I do not have a union, but I'm okay with that because I'm comfortable at my school. And I feel like I'm doing my best and they see that. Now, yes, I was off for 2 years. I had a lot of learning to do. I had a lot of growth that I needed to do, jumping back into the profession, but my administration has seen that, you know, within my observations. That's another thing that I do want you guys to keep in account is you do get observed yearly, regardless if you're a new teacher versus a veteran teacher. You know, the amount of observations you get are different, but in every single state, the schools are required, charter, private, public, you know, whatever. They're required to observe you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a year, just because it's a critiquing, you know, it's for constructive criticism. And that's something you have to remember is you have to have a backbone as a teacher. Number 1 with students and number 2 with your administration. You have to be able to take what they say, but also stand up for what you believe in. And if you feel like something is wrong in your observation or you feel like something should be changed, you need to learn to speak up. You know, that's something that took me a lot of time to realize. But my observations have always been good. I've always had, you know, highly qualified in classroom management, in, you know, preparation, lesson planning, execution, all of that. Let me know in the comments down below if you want me to specifically talk about the ins and the outs of you know, classroom observations or what my experience was. I could do an entire series on this, you guys. If you have questions you want to ask me, let me know down below. I could do a whole nother video with questions from you guys, and that would mean a lot to me because then I could really talk about what you guys want to know. You know, I could really let you know the ins and the outs of the profession. This was just kind of a basis video for you guys to kind of get an idea as to what goes on in the world of teaching and how you get involved and things like that. You know, I could go through the interview process in one video. I could go through behavioral issues in another video. Behavioral management is a really big topic in the teaching profession because a lot of teachers lack or don't have a strength in that. And I have to tell you, this year going back was hard. I really had to get my bearings again where classroom management was concerned. And I still am struggling, you know, with the cell phones and with all kinds of things that have changed over 2 years, just from when I was teaching before to when I was teaching now, or when I'm teaching now. So many things have changed. So I had to get my bearings in the classroom management department, but that's a whole nother video that I could talk about as well. So many things, you guys. I can just make a series out of this, and let me know if you're interested in that, and I would gladly do that for you. Because something I really want to talk about is, you know, what happens in the classroom, what it's like in the classroom, and how to handle things in the classroom. I don't see a whole lot of this stuff talked about on YouTube. You know, there are teachers on YouTube who have teacher channels who talk about, you know, certain things and who show you the everyday, you know, my life, and I love that stuff, but I really want to get to the nitty gritty, and I want you guys to be able to ask questions too, and I want to be an open book without putting myself into deep water or, you know, have to be careful because of some of the legalities. You know, I just want you guys to know that this is a profession that is worth considering. And if you are considering it, just weigh those pros and cons, and if it's something that you're interested in, do it. You know, you never know that you love something until you try it. And like I said, I never have looked myself in the mirror and said, I regret being a teacher, if that helps. I could keep talking and talking and talking, you guys. I hope that there was some good content in this video. I hope that you guys learned something or took away something as far as the program, as far as, you know, the state to state transfer. I could also do a video about that. I could do, you know, the process and the paperwork and help you guys, you know, go through the paperwork process, especially if you're coming from out of state into California. There is so much I could do with this series, but I thought I would open it up with this video just to kind of talk and test the waters a little bit and see if you guys were interested in, you know, the teaching side. I know that a lot of my followers are here more for the beauty part, and I still want to do that. I totally want to do that, but I also want to open my channel up a little bit more for a new forum, for a new niche. If I could help any other teachers who maybe were in my boat, taking a break for a couple years, who come back to the profession, I would love to do that too. I'm a jack of all trades, you guys. This channel is for so many different things. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, I just have so many ideas going through my head right now, so many things I could talk about, but I think I'll keep it, to this so that you guys can ask me questions down in the comments and then I can jump off of that. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end this video here. If you have not already hit the subscribe button down below, please do so before you leave. I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, you guys. I really hope that I helped in some way, shape, or form. And to all my fellow teachers out there, stay with it. It's hard, it's an undervalued profession, but we are worth it and we do matter. So thank you again so much, you guys. Have a wonderful day and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!